First of all, I won't do very much in the way of introductions, but just say who it is that's on our panel today. Jenny Hodgson works with Community Foundations and is going to be representing the view from Community Foundations' perspective. Brian Kagoro has been studying philanthropy in the context of corporate involvement. And then in between, we've got Beulah and Moipone to this side, and Nicanor and Sarah on the other side, who will get to hear all their views. So we'll start with Jenny.
As we have a growing local philanthropy scene, and as NGOs are being encouraged to look for local resources, that is a powerful group of localized institutions with big infrastructure, big resources in the global north, who may threaten to displace the fundraising efforts of other NGOs, and to even compete with the very organizations that they were supposed to be supporting. So I think as a field, we need to enable ourselves to think about some of these flows of resources. So for me, and I say again that I very much do see the importance of the larger enabling environment, and we're seeing in countries like India and Kenya and Uganda what happens, what is an insidious effect it has when the spaces start to close down. And you're seeing innovation, like in India, NGOs are re-registering themselves as private sector organizations. So this work will happen with or without an enabling environment. People will find ways to make it work. An enabling environment will make it a lot easier, that's for sure.
Field of philanthropy and what we define as philanthropy is increasingly complicated now that you have a venture capital, you have impact investors, you have social enterprise, and you have large, big, organized global foundations, and then of course you have the community type groups. One of the key things is not for us to stand on a pedestal and say this is wrong or this is right. Remember, part of the reason why we even encourage philanthropy is we want not only to increase assets, we also want to increase household savings, the domestic savings, household incomes, but we also want to create citizenship. This ability that you are not only a citizen vis-a-vis your government, but you are a citizen vis-a-vis any actor who comes and purports to contribute to your self-development. So there are many issues to discuss, but the one idea I want to leave with you is philanthropy apartheid occurs not out of bad will. It occurs out of inattention to the differentiated roles and capacities and structures of the actors in the field.
Thank you. So I must turn to another expert and ask Moipone, as an entrepreneur, what do you think?
I'm an ordinary citizen who has a problem. And the question we need to ask here is, by the way, why did you set up business? Why are we philanthropists? What do we want to achieve? And the second one is development. What is it supposed to achieve in our communities? And who decides what needs to be done? We only know that we want to effect change. But how we effect that change? Please come into my community and talk to me and look at what I am doing. And from that perspective, we probably would do more, because I think we've achieved a whole lot more in the time before you joined my community than after you came.
If the objective is about building community assets, if the objective is about building citizens' participation, if the objective is about self-help and creation of philanthropic culture in Africa, please, whenever your policy environment talks about investors, talks about this, anything of value, it looks on them as foreign, never local. I think it's time to change that picture. We are the ones who create the jobs that are needed. We are the ones who will help to build those community assets. This company and these companies like this will go tomorrow. But we'll be here to clean up the mess, Mr. Regulator. Let's start at home.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd like to go to Julia and ask her, what is your view on this question of creating an enabling environment?
As a practitioner, what is our experience on the ground? Best policies are in place, especially where I come from, South Africa. Best policies are in place. Business are paying taxes, and yes, the CEO, in terms of their contributions from corporate sectors are coming in. Even in our country, the BEE, broad-based Black Empowerment Scorecards, it's marked off down all the time. So it seems to me we should say we're in a good space. We should be happy to be in that space.
I'm here to make a proposal that we need to work with our National Statistics Bureau so that we can design parameters that are able to capture the work that we do as philanthropists, so that we also are able to contribute to our national development and feel that actually our contribution is appreciated but also is taken note of. But I believe that we want to mobilize resources to be able to put into our communities. And therefore, if there are a few of us who feel incentivized by being given these tax incentives, it is something that we need to consider, because it just means that we are able to mobilize more resources to be able to support the work that we do. So I want to see us putting regulations that are sound, regulations that will be able to allow young people to give through these online portals. I want to rest my case there.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, these are all very valuable ideas. There are certainly contending ideas that I've heard today, and I'm left wondering if there are questions that I should be asking. But I'm going to go to my jury out here and ask them if there are things that are not clear that they would have liked explained a bit more, or which they think they would like to reinforce.
My fear right now, from what I'm seeing and the way the discussion is going, is that we are making philanthropy almost like an industry instead of an ecosystem. The moment we make it an industry, then it goes without purpose, because it becomes the philanthropist oriented instead of the beneficiary oriented. So if you're talking about community or individual, can we think about what is the purpose of a philanthropy? Where do we see as Africans that need critical assistance in terms of investment of philanthropy dollars or shillings? And can we have a critical impact that we are aiming at, which after some time we can evaluate and say, we came up with this, we need to move to the next level, or we need to stop it here because the spillover effects are more positive than negative as currently stands in Africa. Thank you so much.
There's really an opportunity for us to improve what corporate bodies can do for us in Africa and what extractive industry can do for us in Africa. There are challenges here and there. There are a lot of things that we can do to improve what is happening amongst our corporate institutions in Africa. And we don't have to just leave it to government. We have to also take it up as civil society organizations and community foundations and philanthropic organizations to engage them appropriately to be able to get a full benefit of what we want.
I think it is important for all of us today, when we talk about an African philanthropy, it has to carry two things to me. One, it has to carry very seriously the African culture. The second is the philosophy itself, the philosophy of being, of becoming, and of belonging, an African. I think we need to reinterrogate and challenge our theory of what we call growth and development, because there's something wrong, and we must bust that myth. Otherwise, we're all slaves of narratives that does only one thing: dehumanizes us and reduces us to objects rather than being subjects of our own development. We need to reinterrogate the issue, and we need to re-engineer and rethink about a different way of doing it, because what we see on the ground then is not providing justice, and it's destructive for our natural resources that are important for us and for our livelihoods. then we need to question the question of education. Is this education for liberation or education for domestication? Is the mind liberated? What about the other assets that are not educational like that, not going to class? For instance, my spiritual assets, where do you put those within the philanthropy world? I think it is those assets that makes us human beings that are being thrown away in the name of development and progress and replaced by non-human, by philosophies, by practice, by a culture which reduces us to objects. Thank you.
Remember, there's no leader without followers, and there are no followers without leaders. So we, or all of us as communities, we need to be working hand in hand. We can't keep on blaming governments when we as ordinary people are not doing all the work as well. We need to be working together to make our societies and our surroundings better.